This week on Press Start, we stop at ComicStop at Redmond Town Center to speak with Mike, the manager there.
Today we went down to our local comic store. It's at the Redmond Town Center in Redmond called ComicStop. And the manager there, Mike, was very, very friendly, and he was able to give us some really good information about comics, especially since we're sending Howard down to the San Diego Comic Con coming up.
And actually the folks there at ComicStop do help out with Emerald City Comic Con.
Yeah,
our counterpart
so
up here.
Pretty cool.
Not as big as the San Diego Comic Con, of course, because that's one of the biggest in the world, if not the biggest, but our very own up here. So they know all about how to put that kind of a show on, as we actually visited it this year as well. So
not only did we get a chance to walk around the store, but I also got some really cool information about comics. Quite frankly, I don't read that many comics, so it was really nice to hear from a professional's experience about what's going on and what's needed.
yeah, so we got a few tips for you, a couple of comments on what's coming up here this summer, and if you're in the area, of course, you can always stop in to talk with Mike himself. He's quite knowledgeable.
Hey, so we're here at ComicStop with Mike, and he's the manager here, and we wanted to talk to you about some of the things because Comic-Con is coming up, and it's very important, San Diego. We wanted to know what is really, really important about comics.
Well, comics are great because there's a mythology to comics that can translate to current events in a way that films and TV shows can't do because of budget concerns. So you can do things on a really epic scale and still have this kind of underlying story that's really important to teaching values and you know, things, morality tales and such.
A great example of that was recently brought back to the forefront was Watchmen.
Yeah.
Very, very timepiece, but of course it can apply on a much more broad spectrum, and even though they did change some things from paper to celluloid, it was very centric to the time what they did with that, and I think that it was important to be able to get those kinds of ideas out there in a mass media spectrum that everyone can enjoy while still getting information. I think that's a great way to disseminate it too.
Yeah.
Are there any cool story arcs that are going on right now that we should know about?
Well, every summer there's always some really big story arcs that are going on. So you have the two major publishers, which are Marvel and DC. Marvel is doing a big thing called Fear Itself, and DC is doing a big thing called Flashpoint, which is rumored to go into their big relaunch in September.
Tell us more about Fear Itself. What's that?
So Fear Itself, in the Marvel Universe, you have guys like Captain America, Spider-Man, Thor, and so in Fear Itself, you have this god of old, who we don't quite know his name just yet, I don't think, and he has come back, and he has put the fear into all of the old gods. So much so that like Thor and Odin and all of these guys have said, yeah, we're out of here. This guy's too much for us. And so, of course, the heroes rally and come forth, and that's what we're in the midst of. So, this elder god is disseminating hammers to various people and saying, "You will be my standard bearer." And so it's ranging across the board. So he's giving them to villains, he's giving them to heroes, and it's transforming them into something else.
Wow.
So we've already had one death. The major death in there, which was Captain America, the new Captain America, which was Bucky.
Yeah.
And so they've killed that character off, or have they?
That's always a good question.
Exactly.
Death and Return of Superman.
So that was the big thing, and that just happened, and that's what's going on across the board with Marvel. And with Fear Itself, the speculation that you can think is that at the end of this, there will be some ramifications to the Marvel Universe, but it's not like a game changer. This is what they your summer movie is what it.
This is the blockbuster of the paper universe.
Yeah.
So I'm looking around at the store, and there's obviously a lot of very independent stuff, like from Dark Horse. But then there's also quite a few of the movie and TV. Like it almost to me sounds like it's the chicken that came before the egg, in a sense, because it's a TV show that has now become a comic. Buffy, all of the Joss Whedon stuff. There's Muppets even have that going on right now. And I don't read comics very often, but I do read Buffy. And
that doesn't surprise me so much.
I know, right? So could you talk about that, like the difference between going to like watching a TV show and it becoming a comic, or starting as a comic and then becoming TV's movies like Batman?
More people yell about it when it goes from comic to TV.
You actually have two different camps in that. So as Buffy was a show that lasted for X amount of years, and then not to put any fine point on
7 seasons.
And while that show was going on, there were Buffy comics as well. But those books were never really considered canon. They weren't part of the show. So you could have things that happened in those comics that later on the show might have contradicted.
Yeah.
Once the show ended, and there was still this clamor of people wanting more Buffy, the fine folks at Dark Horse Comics and Joss Whedon and a lot of the people, the writers from the show, kind of got together and said, let's continue on and let's make this all canon. So we're going to call this Season 8. And so it's all part of
It's a good way
the
to
Buffy.
extend the known and loved characters.
So that becomes something that's kind of different, because that's never really been done before. So when you look back at the old Star Wars comics that Marvel produced while the movies were still going on, those comics did not count as far as George Lucas was concerned. It wasn't really until Buffy that somebody came in and said, hey, let's make these stories, and they count to the fans of these characters. So now you have like the Whedonverse, you have Dollhouse, you have Angel, Buffy, so those, and they all count.
So with the DC reboot, they're talking now, I heard rumors about iPad apps and all these other things, web apps for comics to download them. So I love the smell of a comic book store. It's really great. It doesn't smell like Stinky Geek to me. It smells like yummy fresh books. And so what do you think is going to happen when this reboot happens?
Well, DC is taking kind of the bull by the horns and saying, we're going to relaunch our entire universe. We're going to put out 52 new titles, but we are now going to find out whether digital is
a viable option.
Is the viable option. Yeah. And so they are going to go to day and date digital, as well as the floppy books.
So they're going to be carrying them both simultaneously?
Yeah, so when Wednesday morning comes around and your comic shop opens up, I will have the physical books on the shelves. But for those who are interested in digital
Midnight
comics,
02, they'll be able to download it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's been the subject of conversation in the industry for a few years now is, all right, everything is going to digital. How is this going to affect our industry? As far as the big two, Marvel and DC, who lead the forefront on this, there's no doubt in my mind that they want to go to digital.
Yeah.
It's a cheaper way of disseminating these stories, and it makes them more of the profit.
Yeah, there's more income, less money into paper, money into
But
shipping.
the problem for them is okay, if we just say, you know what, we're just going to go to digital, and it doesn't work, you've heaved all of your stores, who then go, you know what, I give up on you, and suddenly you've shot yourself in the foot. So that was the line that everyone was kind of walking for the past few years, where they were, everyone's kind of going, well, I want to go to digital, let's do this, and we'll kind of put this over here, test this here. DC finally said, listen, this is either this is the dinosaurs watching the comet in the sky, or it isn't.
Yeah.
Let's find out.
So there you have it. I mean, Marvel versus DC. Quite frankly, I'm on the fence. I'm not really sure yet.
I think that you had two very knowledgeable individuals tell you exactly which side to stand on.
I know, right? Especially since DC's going through that whole reboot. I mean, hello, that's kind of
there's
in
a lot
itself,
going on,
like,
so it's definitely something to watch. So
kind of like, oh, pick me, pick me.
Exactly. Well, you know, there's a lot going on in the comic world now with some of the changes that we're making, as we of course discussed. And we were very lucky to have Mike working with us. He's knowledgeable. I had a blast talking with him. You know, it was great to exchange quips, because he's also another Star Wars Extended Universe aficionado as well.
The other cool thing about their store is that he really, being in a mall, they get a lot of families in there, and he actually has a whole section that's tailored towards kids. So if you have some types running around and you want to check out,
get them hooked on the good stuff young.
Comics, yeah, and there's tons to choose from. And then if you're also older and don't have kids quite yet, that's totally fine too, because there's a kid inside all of us.
Absolutely.
Begging to have the Muppets
toys
read to them.
And
oh
pictures.
My gosh, the
and
statues were really,
yeah,
really
they had
cool.
great, the busts that they had were fantastic.